Hey guys, thanks for tuning into another episode of Nev's Garage. Now if this is your first time joining us, of course, please smash that old subscribe button, toggle on that little bell, that way you'll be notified when our next video comes out. What are we up to today though, I can hear you asking. Got this SH9 series Subaru Forester here, and she needs a new rear wheel bearing, right? So in this model, Subaru did away from their traditional press-in bearing with a separate wheel hub to a complete bolt-on hub assembly, all right? That's what they look like. Now in doing this, they pretty much did away from the need of a workshop press and really opened up this job to the DIY, okay? Now before you get all carried away and run on down to your local auto parts store and grab one, just crawl onto the back of the car, measure this bolt pattern, okay, where it bolts on, because over the years in different series they used a few different trailing arms and resulted in a few different bolt patterns. So it's not always clear which one each car has. If you got that info, you're going to have a good time the first time, alright? So just measure the length, width, note it down on a piece of paper, zip on down and we're good to go. So this is the one we need. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so we've got the car jacked up and on stands, so we're just going to rip this wheel off. Alright guys, so our wheel's off. Now what we're going to do is just spray a bit of Lennox in here. And that's just going to wick into the thread on the axle, just to soak there while we continue on for a little bit. Okay, so next we're going to swing the caliper out of the way, so we're going to remove the disc. Alright, so let's just get the caliper off. Alright, so we've got our caliper undone, so what we're going to do now is just hang it up out of the way. Like that, that'll be fine. Now we should be able to slide our rotor off. There we go, rotor's off. And there's our hub. You can also see the park brakes there. We won't need to disturb any of those. Alright, so now that our rotor's off, we just need to uncrimp the lock tab on the nut here. So just a little flat screwdriver, just drive him in there. Like that, that'll spin around now. So now we just need to undo the axle. Okay, so now of course we need a way of locking the hub so that it doesn't spin when we undo the nut. Now I've got a nice little jig for doing this. So this plate just comes on here like this. Just screw it on. And then I put a locking bar through here, which will spin around and touch the ground and stop the axle for turning, see? Like that, okay? So that will lock that axle and we can undo that nut really easily. Now, I don't expect you all to have a jig like this. Very handy to have, but if you don't, of course, you can just knock the center cap out of the wheel and you can loosen this axle either before you start the job or let it back down onto the wheel, under the axle, and then knock the wheel back off. So in this case, we don't have to do that because I've got this super awesome jig. 32mm socket. And you're going to need a breaker bar because this is going to be quite tight. There we go. Once you've broken it loose, you can use a bit of electrical assistance. And that axle nut's off. So now of course we can take our jig off and just tuck it under there because we're going to need it when we do the axle back up. Alright, so now our axle's undone. Now, once again, shoot some Lennox in here. That'll let it soak into the splines a little. And as you can see, it's loose anyway, so we're almost ready to whip this hub out. We've just got to duck under the car now and undo the 4 studs. Alright, so let's see if we can get into these and get them out. Alright, so I'm just going to pop a couple of these back in, just loosely. Just start them a little like that, because what I need to do, I think, is give them a bump. I'm just going to give them a tap on the end with a hammer. There we go. Now I should be able to take them off again. There we go. Alright, so it's brought the whole backing plate and everything off, righto. Now this is why you should grease things when you put them together, people. See how much rust is around this, and it's not letting the hub come out of the backing plate. It's not a big issue though, because we'll get it out in a sec. Let's just pop him down there. Run some Lennox around the back of the backing plate here. Let it soak for a minute. While we're waiting for that, we can just tidy up the housing here. Have to be careful, of course, of the ABS sensor. Alright, now that's been soaking for a couple of minutes. Just going to give that a whack with our lump hammer, and it should just come out. Yeah. So there's our old hub assembly. Now we're just going to clean around the inside of our backing plate. Okay, so we're going to set that backing plate back up on there now. Now, nothing to really hold it there yet. So it's just kind of going to sit on the axle. Now we get our new hub. Okay, there it is. Now it is lubricated a little around here, but what we're going to do, we're just going to put a smear of anti-seize around the edge of it. Okay, now this is a high melting point grease, so it's not going to melt and get on your brakes or anything. Just going to wipe it off the seal, because this is a magnetic seal with tones in it for the ABS. Now we've almost got it ready to fit. We are going to put a bit more of this anti-seize on the drive shaft spline, okay, because we don't want that to rust and seize into the hub either. Doing stuff like this, guys, makes future service a lot more easy. So next time you got to pull this apart, it's going to come apart easily. Alright, so in we go. Hold our backing plate up, in through our axle, in through our backing plate, in through our trailing arm, like that. Lovely. Now it's just a matter of lining up some holes. Gravity's going to hold that there for us while we pop underneath and nip the bolts in. The same thing with these bolts, guys. We're going to put a bit of copper anti-seize grease on the threads. Right, so just to make sure that next time we service this, it's really easy. So first one is going to be the hardest, of course, lining up the holes. Let's line up the backing plate first and shoot it in, and then rotate the hub if we can. There we go. Once we get one started, should make it pretty easy. Cool. Now give the others the same treatment. Alright, so we're just going to make sure that all these are started before we try and run them in. Alright, so now we're going to run them down on auto mode. And just make sure everything's seated how it should be, which it looks like it looks fine. Yep, cool. Alright guys, it's all in there and secured, so we've just checked all the brake shoe retainers, make sure they're still in the right spot, which they are. Okay, after having the backing plate off and everything, so it's all ready to go back together. So we've got our rotor. Now make sure you clean the mating surface of where the rotor fits against the hub. Make sure there's no debris in there, because if there is, when you bolt it together, that's going to cause run out. Okay, alright, so I've wiped it with the rag. Now there's a few just rust residue deposits, so we're going to give them a bit of a wire brush. Alright, and then another wipe with the rag. That way we're really going to minimise the chance of getting debris between our two mating surfaces, and our rotor's going to run true. Okay, so that's nice and clean. The new mounting face is clean, of course, because it's brand new. So on goes our rotor. Like that. Cool. So next, of course, is our jig to tighten up our axle nut. Okay, now our axle nut. Now these are good to reuse unless they're totally munted, so this one will be fine. We are going to give it the anti-seize treatment, okay? So this will both make it easier to remove next time, and also we put a bit on the flange of the nut. Helps us get a proper smooth torque as well. Alright, so 32mm spinner. Can run him down first with our gun. Now we can jump on him with our breaker bar, make sure it's nice and firm. That's fine. So it's pretty much done now. So caliper next. Before we do that, we're just going to wipe any grease marks off the rotor. So a bit of brake cleaner on a clean rag. Doesn't hurt to do the other side too. Probably quicker just to pop it off. Now it's time for the caliper. Alright, so we'll just unhook our caliper. Swing him back into place. That bolts back in. Okay, run them up and then tighten them up. And that's it. She's ready for a wheel. Alright guys, so it's all back together. Just got to torque up the wheel nuts now, and she's all done. Easy as. Alright guys, well there's our old hub assembly. Okay, she's cactus, so happy birthday to the bin with that. Now they really are a lot easier to change than the old press-in style. So anyone can do this. It'll take you a couple of hours, and Bob will be your uncle. So we're all done. Now there's just a few more things you need to do on your end. You need to like this video, you need to share it to your friends, and of course you also make sure you're subscribed, okay? Jump on Instagram, like and follow us there, put all that together and you're going to have a really good time. But that about wraps me up. I'm Nev, this is my garage, and I'll catch you all next time.